Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. Musings upon footwear. This is a plea to all men, and less so to women. I have noticed, with a degree of concern, that the predominant footwear now worn is a training shoe. I cannot bring myself to use the term sneakers, and so will not do so. Training shoes are named in order to hint at the use of such an item. They are made for sporting activities and really should not be seen out of the arenas for these events. They are not to be seen in any other public place except in the following circumstances. Children are allowed to wear this type of shoe. They tend to have the habit of running around a great deal, usually to everyone's annoyance, and this excuses them. They are also forgiven for not yet having been introduced to all levels of social decorum, and so again, some leeway is given. People travelling to and from a sporting venue are allowed to wear training shoes. This is, however, on the strict understanding that the remaining apparel is also of a sporting nature. Though please, I implore you, no shousons. I think we all agree on that one. So to and from the gym is allowed, although be prepared to apologise and explain at any point if, for instance, you should be stopped by the police when driving to the gym. Let us say that your rear light has stopped working. When you step from the vehicle, the police will, quite reasonably, assume the worst. One needs to rectify the situation, re-establish your position as a gentleman with a swift and apologetic explanation. Policemen are good people. They will forgive you if you clarify the circumstances. So other than these two occasions, I can think of no other obvious reason why training shoes should be seen on the public streets. If we do not adhere swiftly to these guidelines, then we may well find ourselves on a very slippery slope. Our cousins over the pond failed to set firm rules, and look where they are now. I have personally never witnessed it, and heaven help shall I ever do so, but I am informed that professional people have been seen wearing training shoes with a suit. I do hope you did not drop that glass of wine in your other hand. If you did, I am truly sorry, but there was no way to easily or gently tell you that. Unbelievable, isn't it? And I'm not making this up. My friend Grant has actually seen it with his own eyes. He witnessed a man in broad daylight walking to work on a street in New York. He was wearing, and again, brace yourself, a blue pinstripe suit with a pair of white trainers. Grant presumed at first that someone must be on day release from the local mental health institute. He looked for accompanying nurses, and then, noting that the man was alone, searched for a nearby policeman to hail. With not one to be seen, he began to panic. Other people had not seemed to notice, but then New Yorkers are famous for ignoring the goings-on around them. The man's dress sense clearly exposed a deranged mind. A madman was loose in the city. The next logical step would be that a knife or even a gun would appear in his hand. My friend had no idea what to do. Now Grant is not a hasty man. He does not make reckless decisions. Yet on this day, for some reason that he is unable to explain, he took it upon himself to take on the role of the hero. It appeared that no one else was going to confront or tackle this maniac on the loose. If he did not, then who would? If he waited until there were dead bodies littering the sidewalk, then who would be held responsible? Would he not feel guilt for not even trying? He felt something stir within. There was no phone box to rush into. His underpants did not flip onto the outside of his trousers, but he felt an impulse to act. He chased, caught, and leapt upon this lunatic at large. He remembers that there was a great deal of commotion. Arms and legs were grabbing and kicking. He could hear a blood-curdling scream, and it took a few seconds before he realised that it was he that was emitting this terrible noise. People were shouting that there was a madman. He was relieved that as he wrestled the man, he could hear many of them calling for the police. I am sure that you have formed a mental picture of this furious melee. Grant said he caught a glimpse of a police uniform closing in. The wrestling suddenly got worse. Obviously the madman was struggling more violently and things were getting a little desperate. The policemen, there now appeared to be 3 of them, somehow managed to separate him from what was obviously more of a crazed desperado than Grant had initially suspected. The shoes and the suit had obviously only hinted at the level of underlying mental instability. The police extracted him from the fracas and placed him in the back of a nearby police car. The madman was clearly still very dangerous, and Grant presumed that he continued to be the target of the man's anger due to his valiant citizen's arrest. Thank God the police had prioritised Grant's safety. Perhaps they were going to present him with a certificate to recognise his bravery. A senior officer, perhaps even the mayor himself, would be needed, and therefore he was to be taken to the nearest police station, or perhaps even City Hall. Though why a pair of handcuffs were being placed around his wrists was a little odd. The following day, the magistrate in a small courtroom in Manhattan agreed to a fine of $200 and a sincere apology, and Grant was bound over for a year. He has not been to the States ever since. He now believes that these incongruous combinations of dress code are the very start of the breakdown in the fabric of society. He spent a night in jail because a young man thought it acceptable to wear Adidas with a suit. So I have provided you with a salient example of why training shoes are just unacceptable, gentlemen. Please do not risk the streets of London becoming like New York. The products of Savile Row and Sports Direct should never be seen together on a man's person, let alone in the same sentence. Well, apart from just then. Good evening.